Hey guys, what's up? So in this video, I'm going to be talking about the things I wish I knew when I started programming. And I know other people have actually done this topic. I don't even know if I've done this topic in the past, but I'm 10 years into my career now. And there's a lot of things that I now know about being a software developer that I did not know when I first started. So I'm going to go ahead and try to just address those things. And I do apologize if any of this comes off as negative in any sort of way. I think a lot of this, I can be somewhat pessimistic, but I'm also a realist, and I look at things in that perspective. So, keep that in mind. So I will try to balance this out with both positive and negative, but there's going to be both. For starters, when I first landed my programming job and I was showing up to the first day, I had this fear that everybody was going to be thick glasses, lab coats, PhD type of smarts that I was not going to be able to compete with, especially as a self-taught developer that didn't go to school. I was really, really worried that I wasn't going to be able to hang. 10 years in, and I pretty much knew this immediately going in after just a few days, the people are not nearly as smart as you think that they are. There's so many different programmers out there that think they know everything, and the true seniors are the ones that know that they don't know a lot. And on that same note, one of the reasons why is because the longer you do this, the more you realize that we kind of reinvent the same wheel a lot, and you do lose knowledge that you retained long ago. And that is one of the sad things, because we're constantly forced to try to learn more and more and more. And the fact of the matter is we're not going to use half of it. All right, the next thing to know is that the majority of your time is actually not spent coding, and it certainly isn't coding something that you have autonomy over, meaning that you have control over the decision. In many cases, you're spending your time trying to follow or find documentation for rules and regulations put in place by people either long ago or people above you. And in many cases, that stuff is not documented. And it's not about whether or not you know how to code in Python or C# or something like that. It's more about, do you know how to follow all the rules and regulations, from kicking off a build server, requesting code reviews, reviewing those code reviews, referring to documentation that people may speak of that, like I said, is either non-existent or completely out of date. But these types of little things are where you spend a lot of your time. And if it's not in that, it's in Agile, Scrum meetings. You're doing a lot of planning, administrative tasks to try to account for your hours. A lot of businesses consider IT staff as an expense, and they want it all expensed out to figure out exactly where they're spending all their money. So that brings me to my next point, which is that the more senior you become in this industry, the more you look at the junior developers when they promise the world that they can deliver something in 2 or 3 weeks or something like that, when you know that if everything went perfectly, they might be able to reach that goal. And in all likelihood, they're going to present a huge pile of crap. And those are the types of things, as a senior developer, like, you do not want any part of. You want to use the 3 times estimate. So if you think something's going to take you a week, you ask for 3, because you know that there's going to be meetings that are canceled where you need to get requirements. There's going to be missed requirements. There's going to be people that you rely upon to get the project done in many cases that are not going to be able to come through in a timely fashion. So nobody cares that you promised a week when it was supposed to take 3. And here's another huge tip for anybody that works for a business. Working is better than good, and good is better than perfect. Some people will strive for 100% code coverage. They'll strive for 100% perfect, clean code. And you have all these like philosophy books that are written on it. But business cares about one thing only, and that is meeting those deadlines. So if you say that something's going to take 3 weeks, sometimes you have to cut corners in order for the thing to work. And typically, as long as it is working and functional, that is going to be perceived in a better way than not working at all, and or missing deadlines in order to get it perfect. One thing that becomes absolutely apparent after doing this for many years is that there's no such thing as a perfect code base. For anything that is remotely complex, whether it's the biggest FANG companies out there to just regular Fortune 500 business, their stuff is just all duct taped together. It reminds me of Perl. They used to call it the Swiss Army chainsaw of the web. And it was really because everything was just duct taped together. They called it the duct tape of the web, actually. And it was because it basically duct taped all these web pages together using these CGI scripts, and it was an absolute nightmare. But the entire web was built upon it. Like Amazon was built upon garbage Perl code. And it was written by senior engineers writing garbage code under very heavy deadlines. But the bottom line is they got it working, and it looks like a success story now. But Amazon and all these companies, they constantly rewrite their code bases all the time. You look at React and how often that's changing. Any sort of project is always changing like that. And it's because a lot of it is just a hot mess of garbage. And that's just the way things are. So your code is going to sometimes be garbage. Sometimes you're going to look at a pristine piece of code and be very, very happy with it. And that's going to fade into obscurity very quickly when you start running and patching together the next hack. All right, so a few other things to talk about. Nobody cares about where you went to school unless you're trying to get a job. And then it becomes like this big deal. But once you're actually working with people, nobody talks about, oh, I went to this or that. And maybe it's because I don't work with people that went to MIT. And if I did, they might be talking about it all day long. But in the business world, like, nobody cares. It just never comes up. However, there will be people that will hold the fact that you don't have a degree against you, and there are cliques and bands within programming. It's a very male-dominated, introverted type of crowd in many cases. But the old adage of it's all about who you know is definitely also the case in many programming fields. You can just read up on Google about all these different companies that have been sued for different programmer type, frat boy type cultures. However, it's mostly hipster. So most programmers, in my opinion, are the hipster types, or just the completely normal 9 to 5 people who do not eat, sleep, and breathe code. They have lives, they have families. There's millions of programmers like that are like the normal people that you don't really have at the forefront of what's being advertised as the typical, high-level programmer. And really, I think what is advertised is what a lot of companies are looking for. These, no life having people that literally eat, breathe, and sleep thinking about code all day. And that is just not a very healthy thing. So 10 years in, I do realize that will fast track your ass to a burnout. However, when we talk about salaries and pay scales, that is something that is very beneficial for younger developers that have a lot of free time on their hands, that can actually spend all their weeknights and weekends before you have kids, before you have a wife or husband. You spend a lot of your time being able to code. And one of the great things about that is that programmers, they make their peak level salary very, very quickly. So if you're a junior developer, within 5 years, you can be considered a senior engineer making $120,000 a year, which isn't uncommon. The problem with that, though, is that once you get to that level, that's all fine and great, especially for people that say, okay, I'm only making 50 now, I'd love to make 120. Yeah, that's obvious, but what happens when you make 120 and then you don't go anywhere for the next 10 years? The deadlines just keep renewing, the code bases just keep recycling, and your salary is mostly staying the same or stagnant. That is actually the experience that a lot of senior engineers have, and they end up leaving programming altogether. So 10 years in, I've often wondered, where are these programmers going? And really, these people are leaving coding. They're either getting into management or consulting or starting their own business, or sometimes completely leaving the profession altogether, or teaching and things like that. All right, so finally, guys, I'm going to wrap this up by saying that the things that I wish I knew about code, when I first got into code, I did it in an entrepreneurial mindset. I think I approached it in the right way. I enjoyed the instant satisfaction that I got out of working code, seeing things that I created. And when I finally realized that I could actually write programs that would take a literal, thousands of humans years to collect data and parse data and things like that, I could do it in a Python script through my own mind. That's when things were really starting to click. But for me, it was always through a business sense. How can I make money with this? How can I build a product with this? And that is, for me, the funnest type of programming. Now that I know what being a senior engineer for another company is like, it's not like that. You're writing somebody else's vision. You're doing, and in many cases, a lot of times it's really boring work. And there's nothing wrong with that because you're highly paid and you're not breaking your back and you're just sitting down at a desk staring at a computer screen. But it can be boring work when you compare it to trying to pursue your own dreams. But that said, the main reason why anybody should be a programmer is for the money. It's to make money as a salary and also to build your future dreams. All right, guys, thanks for watching. Have a good day. Bye.